And Redmond has broken down. He's on the track.
Einmal in deinem Leben, heb es hoch, heb es hoch, heb es hoch!
Now New Zealand is trying to overtake France and Belgium. Now New Zealand is in front. Now New Zealand wins.
A powerhouse can be defined as a person, group, team or the like, having great energy, strength or potential for success.
After 6 years of war and 3 years of rebuilding, London hosted the Summer Olympics of 1948.
He's done it! Bruce Jenner set a new world decathlon record!
Balón, Jordan, Amargal, y espectacular jugada de...
Applying this label to countries' teams at the Olympics seems rather straightforward. The better the performance in the medal table, the greater strength or potential for success a nation displays. Well, this is partly true, but to fully understand which states overperform in the games, there are other metrics to consider. The channel Musings posted an excellent video titled "Which Countries Really Win the Olympics?" He devised a formula which determined how countries performed relative to their population sizes, but added a probability element to dictate how many medals they should realistically achieve. Aptly dubbing this system the impressiveness O-meter, it has found Great Britain to be the so-called winner of the past 3 Olympic Games, with Australia closely following in second, having won the first 3 Olympics of the 21st century. Although Musings' metric highlights Britain's presence at the Olympics, this notion of the country overperforming can be heavily corroborated by simply examining the medals table from the Olympic Games since London 2012. Britain consistently finds itself near the summit, surrounded by nations with considerably larger population pools to call upon. I feel this qualifies it currently as an Olympic powerhouse, but this was certainly not always the case. In fact, over a decade earlier, a turbulent and catastrophic fortnight in Atlanta saw Britain branded as the epitome of failure and debilitation.
Linford Christie, the defending champion, goes in lane 2. And the third time they go, and Christie got quite a good one. Oh! Got a feeling that they're looking at Christie. Well, he's come here to defend his title with dignity. He's been thrown out of the final for 2 false starts.
Drawn in lane 6. Amelia Valle of Cuba, drawn in lane 7.
Alan Johnson, the world champion, is becoming the Olympic champion.
Colin Jackson got away well, but between those hurdles 7 to 10, he faltered and the rest came through.
Well, if the flight is right, it's going to be long, but I think it's silver for Steve Backley, and this man is the Olympic champion for the 2nd time.
And the lead was too great for Black to make up. America take gold. Great Britain silver. Jamaica bronze.
With Britain's only gold coming in the coxless pairs rowing race at Atlanta 1996, the nation would finish a dismal 36th place in the medal table. For a country with a rich sporting history, this represented nothing short of a humiliation. The £5 million a year funding channelled into Olympic endeavours had left the entire athletics programme rotten to the core and woefully inadequate when compared to the rest of the world. The governing minds in Britain knew drastic action had to be taken, if not to secure champion Olympic status, then to at least offset the growing embarrassment and global condemnation. But this was not Great Britain's first attempt at rectifying a seemingly deficient and abysmal Olympic culture.
Steve Ovett coming home to take the gold medal.
Now the Huddersfield girl made that extra effort that marks the world champion.
The Germans make a fine drive at the British goal, but our backs stand firm.
In 1912, the Olympic Games were held in Stockholm, Sweden. Great Britain would end up ranking 3rd in the medal table behind the United States and the hosts, winning only 10 gold medals in comparison to the US's 26 and Sweden's 24. Bear in mind, only 28 nations competed, making Britain's accomplishments seem far less impressive. Immediately after the Olympics, both Sweden and America started public fundraising campaigns for the planned 1916 Berlin Olympics, hoping to continue their success. Britain, however, did nothing of the sort. In August 1912, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, wrote a letter to the Times stating that something must be done to arrest Britain's sporting decline. Doyle's suggestion for a change in approach led to an official appeal being launched in 1913. It was to be led by Hugh Grosvenor, the Duke of Westminster and the wealthiest man in Britain at the time. The appeal aimed to raise £100,000, the equivalent of £10 million today, to help with preparations for the Berlin Olympics in 1916. The committee aimed to establish the reasons for Britain's lack of success before suggesting reform, ranging from establishing coaching schemes to providing funding to elite athletes. The problem was, the appeal was viewed as a threat to the amateur ethos, which was not just central to British sport, but to how the British viewed themselves. The British essentially viewed sportsmanship as being more important than actively competing. It was also seen as being overly focused on a few elite athletes, rather than more broadly benefiting sport. It was therefore rejected by the government, becoming consigned to the forgotten annals of history.
This is BBC One, now live and exclusive coverage of the very first draw in Britain's new National Lottery.
To play the National Lottery, all you have to do is pick 6 numbers and mark them off on a playslip. Pay £1, look after your ticket, and an estimated £5 million could be yours.
Yes, the National Lottery live exclusive to BBC Television.
Now you may be thinking, what on earth is this National Lottery and how is it relevant to the story? Well, the National Lottery was launched in 1994 by the then Prime Minister John Major as a way to help raise money for good causes in the UK. Good causes is an extremely broad term, and Major reflected on the initial spending in an article from 1999, stating that the early lottery money went towards infrastructure projects. Yet, the underlying long-term goal was to revive culture and sporting life. They just needed a catalyst to ignite the spark. Atlanta 1996 presented the kindle for the fire, being clear evidence of the need to pour money into future Olympic training efforts. The major government decided overnight to dedicate a major proportion of National Lottery funding to elite sport, and the floodgates fully opened.
There is a direct correlation between money and Olympic and Paralympic success.
Going through the late 90s with what UK sport and lottery funding was doing, but even then you saw an uptick in the standard of facilities, the level of knowledge that was being put into the athletes, and the ability to train abroad and learn from people abroad.
Through channeling money into building state-of-the-art facilities, hiring some of the world's best coaches, and funding trips for athletes to practice in local conditions prior to the Olympics, the British machine was up and running. Athletes were finally receiving extensive support throughout their youth, providing them with a fighting chance of becoming the greatest in their respective sports. The fruits of the funding's labour is clear as day to see. Yet there is one phrase littered across parliamentary reports, newspaper articles and online publications: no compromise. Following the Athens 2004 Olympics, UK sport adopted a no compromise approach to funding, concentrating spending on those sports most likely to win medals. Essentially, if a sport performs poorly at an Olympic Games, their funding was likely to be cut. Prior to the Olympics in Rio, basketball, synchronized swimming, water polo and weightlifting all had their funding cut significantly due to previously subpar performances and the belief that future medal successes would be unlikely. Due to this, major disparities in the funding structure appear, with sports like cycling receiving roughly £24.5 million, whilst handball receives a measly £8,400. Yet this ruthless policy has effectively enabled the country to climb from 36th in the medal table to 2nd, so many see it as, although harsh, being a necessary evil. Admittedly, the controversial approach has been softened since Rio, with the Tokyo Games seeing a more even spread of funding when compared to previous years, perhaps best evidenced by the introduction of funding into karate, skateboarding and surfing. But with Britain attempting to compete on all fronts, could this draw focus away from previous strongholds, like cycling, boxing and rowing? And will this be reflected in the medal table of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Scarface released the song Money Makes the World Go Round in 1997, which ironically reflected both the timing and factors behind Great Britain's emergence as a future Olympic powerhouse. The National Lottery funding was instrumental in putting the country back on the map in a sporting sense, and has continued to fund world-class athletes throughout the 21st century. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this content, then please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Also, why not leave a comment regarding anything I could cover within the sporting and fitness space, and I'll be sure to consider making a video on it. Cheers.